Hello everyone and welcome to yet another Discussions with Dolf, and today I'm in a somewhat crowded place. I find myself in a place called Thamrin City, Thamrin City. It's known as a local market here in Jakarta, Indonesia, and you will not really find many tourists here. And the thing that I find absolutely fascinating is you don't just get hundreds and hundreds of stores. I understand there are 4,500 stores within this complex. But you don't just get 4,500 stores, each selling something different. You will get 300 stores side by side selling nothing but Indonesian batik, which is absolutely fascinating. And if I just do a turn around here, you'll see that they are all around me. They're selling essentially the same items, and batik of course is a sort of uniquely Indonesian way of dyeing materials, and you'll see them absolutely everywhere. And we've spent the better part of a few hours here and haven't even come across a single person who could quite obviously and reasonably be assumed to be non-local. So this is really very much a local place. And as you can see, the tie-dye here is absolutely astounding. Now, the reason I find this interesting, you can see some of them here. The reason I find this interesting, I'm going to do another sort of turn around here just so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Of course, I don't know how the exposure is compensating with all of this. But to get back to the point, the reason I find this fascinating is anywhere else in the world, you will not get two of the same stores side by side. There will be all kinds of rules and regulations against that. In fact, in my own commercial lease documents, often there is an exclusivity clause where I guarantee that in a complex that I control, for instance, you will not get a second tenant trying to sell the same thing as an existing tenant. And this is to protect the interests of your tenant. You don't want to have a coffee shop as one of 8 tenancies in a little mini plex, what do you call it, a strip mall, and then have 7 other coffee shops set up next door. That just wouldn't go down well. Whereas here, it seems to not only go down well, it seems to be the norm. People seem to be quite happy doing this, and I find that just extraordinary. Even for a number of years I owned, well for many years I guess, I owned a funeral parlor, and even in the commercial lease contract of that we had that there would be no competitor that would be allowed in the complex. I find it kind of interesting how you've got this anomaly. But when you come to Asia, you realize that these things happen. I've reported from Hanoi quite recently this year, where I've said that they are the ultimate cafe society, and I've counted not 1 but 7 coffee shops side by side in a row. And they don't seem to be bothered by the fact that there are others nearby. If anything, they think it enhances what they're doing. And that is why I guess I like Hanoi, because if I have one predilection, it's for coffee, and you can go to any number of coffee shops in a row. In fact, they have signs there that just don't say restaurant, but they say restaurant and coffee, or ice cream and coffee. So even ice cream stores and restaurants advertise the fact that they've got coffee and that they're therefore willing to serve it, even if you don't want to come in for a meal or don't want to come in for ice cream. And the same goes here. They're not just selling batik, that's just one of the items. But you'll see that no one seems to mind that there are competitors for this. In fact, here you see they've got the hijab. This is the headdress, of course. You see a lot of stores selling that as well. Anyway, I find it very interesting that competition is not frowned upon. They seem to coexist. Everything is done here in a coexisting manner. In fact, when you see the traffic, it is so dense and it just merges. And even though they have traffic lights, you sometimes wonder, why do they bother with traffic lights? Because no one seems to pay any attention to them. Whether it's red or green, you go through. And anywhere else in the world, that would seem to create a lot of road rage and angry fists and people honking horns. But here, it's just the way it's done. You just merge and you go through. No one gets angry. And that's just how it's done. And it's kind of a different way of looking at life. I haven't heard of the concept of road rage here, and I haven't seen it at all. I've seen lots of traffic jams. Jakarta is notorious for its ridiculously dense traffic. But even so, they seem to cope with it very well. And this, of course, is one of the most jittery discussions with Dolf that you'll see me doing, because firstly, I don't have it on a tripod. I'm not stationary. And secondly, unlike I sometimes do, I don't have one of my gimbals to make it extremely steady. In fact, the camera is a bionic tripod known as my arm. But anyway, having said all of that, this is all we have time for, and I want to wish you, until next time, as always, successful investing. Thank you so much.